Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Carolyn, a new casual chat brought to you by Go1. Thank you for joining us. We invite you to grab your coffee, settle in, and enjoy a session that will give you insight on how to cope with change, which can sometimes be extreme. Keep an eye out for future sessions where Carolyn will invite experts to join her for coffee and talk about things that matter to you, our friends in the HR community. Just some housekeeping items. Feel free to use the Q&A icon to ask questions throughout the webinar. We'll be fielding questions as we go. There's also a chat icon where you can communicate with audience members and Carolyn alike. All attendees are automatically muted. And now on to today's session, self-calibrating to the new normal, brought to you by Go1 and Osmore. We are joined by Carolyn Morris, Senior HR Consultant at Go1, and Chelsea Bowman, Licensed Clinical Social Worker and Self-Help Advocate. Carolyn has a history of working with HR professionals with a focus on communication. She has a master's in strategic communication and works closely with companies in a myriad of industries to create healthy work environments for their employees and empowers them through communication. Chelsea brings her experience in working with people of all ages, life circumstances, and cultures. She has been trained in EMDR, CBT, TF, CBT, DBT, play therapy, art, and other various modalities. Chelsea uses a variety of these modalities to best meet the needs of her clients. Take it away, Carolyn and Chelsea.
Jana, thank you so much. We are so excited to have you. I hope you have your cup of joe. And we're going to deep dive into some different ways that we can self-calibrate because these times are nothing short of wild. And we want to make sure that, I've brought Chelsea on to share with us some different ways that we can cope in real time and how we can create deep, meaningful relationships, whether we're in a virtual environment or whether it's face-to-face. And so we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump to calibrating with intention. And this is something that we're both really passionate about and something that we love. And Chelsea has brought up 3 different strategies, and we're going to unpack each of these. So Chelsea, name it to tame it is something that is really fascinating to me. I would love to learn what that is and how we can use that.
Yeah, definitely. So name it to tame it is a term that was coined by a researcher named Dan Siegel. And basically what that means is that when we can name what we're feeling, we can tame what we're feeling.
So for example, say we're in the workplace and my blood pressure starts to rise.
As it does.
Yeah, sometimes we have those experiences where it's like, woo, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. Okay. How can I tame that? What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought up that your blood pressure was rising because I think that's a great indicator that something's going on for us. So first, tuning into those internal sensations that we have and then being able to connect that back to a feeling. So some sensations are our body getting tight or our hands sweating, or maybe our thoughts start to get rapid. And some of those are more signals of anxiety or frustration. And so just the more you can get in tune with how your body reacts to different things, the more you can name what's going on for you.
And so what's the benefit of being able to name that in the workplace?
Oh, huge benefit, especially in the workplace. Because if you think about how much time we all spend at work, we need to know what's going on for us while we're there, right?
100%.
So emotions, they all serve a purpose. I would think of it maybe as an adrenaline rush. When we get an adrenaline rush, I think we all know what that means for us. Our body's getting keyed up to either go for a big run that we're ready for, or maybe there's some excitement going on around us, but our body's reacting to it. So being able to name that that's going on for me, or when I get my heart rate up that I'm feeling mad, I know what the purpose of that emotion is. Mad is to help me swing into action that I can then do something with that.
So our emotions, when we're able to name our emotions, we're able to call out the action of I'm feeling anxious because of this, or I'm mad and this is the result of that.
Yeah. Great way to sum that up.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
So the next one is mindfulness. And mindfulness is such a big buzzword.
Yes.
But I hear that Carolyn, be mindful, be mindful. But really, what does that even mean? And how do you be mindful? How do you practice mindfulness in the workplace?
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, full question. So mindfulness, it's a buzzword for good reason. It's been around forever, really. And there's so much research to back up the effectiveness of it. And I think other professions outside the mental health world are starting to really recognize that, how much it helps us. So the best way I could describe what mindfulness is being present and within the moment that's going on, that you're not going through that grocery list you've got to get done or all the things you got to do after work, that you're here right here in the moment and you're paying attention to your surroundings.
So hypothetically speaking, if I were in a meeting and I happen to have like 30 different tabs going on in my mind of, oh, I need to walk my dog. I need to go grocery shopping. Oh, shoot, did I send that email? Did I follow up with that person?
Did they respond to the email?
Yeah, exactly. So you have like all these iterations of like, oh my gosh, I have all these different things I have to do. What is that? Like, how can I stay on the one tab in my meeting, in my personal life? What does that look like to be mindful and to quote unquote be present in that moment when I have so many other things that are going through my mind?
Yeah. I love that you brought up that example because I think we can all relate to that. And there's a researcher whose name is leaving my brain, but he calls it monkey chatter, which I think is the best description because we all can imagine monkeys at the zoo climbing everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what our brain's doing. It's climbing everywhere. So I would go back to name it to tame it. We first got to name that that's going on for us, that we're doing that monkey chatter and we're everywhere. And then being able to utilize your 5 senses is a really great way to start. So one of our first senses is sight. So being able to name things in the room is going to pull you back into that room, or naming things about the presenter. What clothes are they wearing? What details are on, if they're wearing a tie, what details are on their tie, or how many buttons do they have? And just noticing all those details on them is going to pull you back into that meeting.
Wow, down to the buttons.
I mean, that's what you gotta do sometimes, right?
Yeah, you do. I didn't even think of that. I'm like, oh yeah, that person's wearing a blue shirt, or yeah, that person has brown hair, or X, Y, and Z. So that's super helpful to be able to literally bring yourself back into the moment and pay attention. Okay, what did they just say? Name 3 things they just said, or 3 things that that person is wearing.
Yeah, and said is your hearing senses too.
Perfect.
So that you're playing on a whole new sense. Good job.
Yeah, and writing it down, another sense.
Yes, that's touch that you're going to get in there.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, name it to tame it, mindfulness, and then we have radical acceptance. And this one to me is really exciting because just even the title of that, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what is that? What does that even look like? What does that mean? So Chelsea, unpack that for us. What is radical acceptance?
Yeah, well, I love radical acceptance too, which is why I wanted to make sure we discussed it today. So first I'll start with the acceptance part of that word. I think it is deceiving because I think it says that we have to accept everything, and that's not what radical acceptance is fully getting at. So reality is painful and we can't change that. I think the pandemic speaks for that. None of us can change what's going on, but we can make the next right step to accept little things in that. So I'll give you an example of a car accident. I was in a car accident a few years ago. A girl T-boned me and I didn't want to be in that car accident. I was very mad, but it didn't change the reality that I needed to call my insurance, and then I needed to call a cop, and I needed to make sure that I had somebody to come get me. But so I can still be upset about it and feeling those feelings, naming it to tame it, but then I just need to do the next right step and accept that these things do have to happen to keep moving forward.
So even though the reality isn't necessarily what we want, we can learn to accept this is the reality and these are the next steps.
Right.
That's fair?
Yeah, great sum up.
That's fair. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And Joanna, I know that we had a few questions come in before our webinar started, and I would love to address those while I have Chelsea here.
Sure. So one question we have is, in regards to name it to tame it, what's the benefit to knowing what you're feeling?
Yeah, great question. I would say the benefit is that emotions all serve a purpose. So we'll go off anger because it gets a bad rap, but anger really is emotion that we feel to motivate us into action. Lets us know that something doesn't feel right or unjust to us. So if I can name that anger, I'm likely going to react better to it, where I think that emotion gets a bad rap because of the behaviors that come with it. But when I can name that that's going on, I'm going to be less reactive to it and be able to make choices to go and advocate for myself versus maybe yelling at my boss or something.
Yeah, being able to, instead of reacting, you're choosing to respond.
Yes.
It's a mindful response.
Yes.
Hey, here we go. Here we go. Do we have another question in the pipeline?
Yeah, so it's actually not so much a question, but a quote, and I'd love you guys to kind of, comment on this. The key to happiness is letting each situation be what it is instead of what you think it should be.
Oh, I am a huge, like, stop shoulding advocate.
Yes.
So often we conjure up these ideas in our mind of this is what it should be, or you should do this, or you should do that, or you should be this. And it's really one of those beautiful experiences where we can take a step back and analyze, is this something that applies to me? Is this something that I believe in? What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, no, and just to add to that, I had a mentor once say to me that shoulding is other people's needs. And I thought at first I was like, what is she saying? That doesn't make sense, because I think we do all should on ourselves and think that happiness and whatnot needs to look a certain way, but it needs to look a certain way for us. And we don't, shoulding on ourselves is just creating more chaos, and it's meeting other people's needs and not our own needs.
100%. Like, what I want out of life and what you want out of life and what other people on this webinar want out of life, it can look so different for each of us. And that's the beautiful part of it. We don't have to have a cookie cutter experience. In fact, let's not have a cookie cutter experience.
Yes.
Let's really relish what we want to create. Let's do it. Let's do it. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, great quote.
And now we've got ourselves a poll question, because we're really curious. What are you using in your workplace to help your employees cope with change? Because there's a lot of change going on right now. Yeah. And so we are chronically adapting and moving and adjusting just a little bit. And so what are you using in the workplace to help your employees cope with change? Are you using online training tools? Are you using a combination of online and offline training tools, education resources like books, white papers, those types of things, or none of the above? We would love to hear what you're using to help your employees and what you're doing to help yourself. And so we'll give you about 15 seconds to respond to that. And something that I love about this type of poll question is that everybody's so different in how they learn.
Yeah.
So different, and everybody thinks differently and learns differently. And so how you learn is totally up to you. There's no right or wrong answer. And so we'll wrap it up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone, thank you so much for answering and responding. We're excited. Educational resources was our top one thus far, and then a combination of online and offline. Wonderful. We are so glad that you are constantly engaging in up-leveling yourself and subsequently your team and those around you. That's awesome. Thank you so much for participating. Our next section is the heart and soul connection, and this is like my bread and butter. I love this stuff. All relationships, whether professional or personal, are created, maintained, or destroyed by communication.
Yeah.
And so often we have treated people like business transactions, and we gotta stop that. We have got to stop treating each other like business transactions. So what are some ways, Chelsea, that you think that we can put like the humanity back in our communication and back in the workplace?
Yeah. Well, first off, I think we need to look at why we treat people like business transactions. I think we do that because we want something from somebody and we need them to perform at work, and it's completely fair. So I think having some compassion for why that sometimes happens will help us to get back into the humanity of it. But one of the best ways I think we can put the humanity back into it is realizing how people want to be treated and how they also want to be praised, and what they'll reciprocate to. So for me, I'm a person that I don't like public praise. I don't want to be pulled up in front of a meeting and have everybody boast about something that I did. But I love it when my supervisor pulls me aside and comments on things that I've done or things that they're grateful for that I've done. And typically when they do that, that makes me want to volunteer to do more supervision or more trainings for my coworkers and whatnot, versus them. And then they don't even have to come and ask me to do it. I'm volunteering at that point because they've met me where I'm at.
Right, exactly. Because I could just see you dying inside of like, oh, don't say anything to the public, don't do it. Where I'm like, Chelsea B, what? Like, I'm all about that. And so treating people how they want to be treated, it's almost like the golden rule just got upgraded.
Yeah.
And I mean, the basis is obviously about respect and making sure that we're treating people well. but let's level that up one notch and treat people how they want to be treated and understand what motivates them.
Yeah.
And yet, so often in our interactions, we're trying to figure out how to connect with people. But then we have like the Heisman Trophy stiff armors out there.
Oh, yes.
And like, I could be in the break room and I could ask someone how their weekend was. And they say, oh, it was good. And I'm like, oh. And they're like, how was yours? I'm like, good.
Peace and blessings. That's what that
Okay,
is.
well, see you later. So how do we get over these emotional stiff arms? What does
Yeah.
that look like?
Yeah. Well, those definitely happen a lot, which is, I think, is why I'm laughing, because I can relate to that a lot. But I think first just recognizing, one, we only have control of ourselves, right? But when somebody comes to us and asks us how our weekend was, they're bidding for connection and they're bidding to get to know us. And so accepting that bid by giving them more than just, yeah, it was good. Giving them details. I went paddle boarding this weekend, or I spent time with family. Giving them those details to the point that you're comfortable with, right? Helps them to get to know you, and you won't get stiff-armed.
Right. And so sometimes I've noticed when I do want to have a deeper connection, I just ask them, well, what was so good about your weekend? I would love to learn more.
Yeah, it's a bid. You're
Yeah.
making a bid.
Yeah, it's almost like Brene Brown.
Yes. Oh, I love her.
Oh, tell us about Brene Brown.
Yes. So Brene Brown has an acronym called BRAVING, and she talks about it as we're braving trust. And I think that's really what you're talking about here at the Emotional Stiff Arms, that we feel comfortable enough to share about what's going on, and that we feel comfortable enough to go to our coworkers for help with things. But she talks about trust in the sense of a marble jar, and about how trust is built in really small day-to-day moments. It's not the big grandiose gestures that we think of. And that when we do those little small things each day by asking somebody how they were, how their day was, and being attentive to them, it puts marbles in their jar that they're going to be more likely to trust us and to come to us with things that we would want them to as supervisors and as coworkers, really.
Amen. Like that small, consistent effort makes a big difference to me. Those
Yeah, me
marbles,
too.
when it's consistent, I'm like, oh, my jar overfloweth.
My jar was what, that's awesome.
Yeah. So now we're gonna chat a little bit about scrolling versus connecting, because we live in a very virtual world right now. I mean, we did before,
Right, but it's even more so now.
but now it's only like exploded since then. So unpack, what's the difference between scrolling and connecting?
Yeah. So my background in mental health, right? Social media is definitely something that we're looking at all the time, and it definitely gets a bad rap for creating more mental health issues. But there's been a lot of research done that it's not necessarily the social media apps, it's how we're engaging on them. So if we just get on an app and we're just scrolling and not even interacting with anybody, it's the same as if we're at a party just sitting there watching everybody else's life go by, and we're not interacting, but we're just doing it on a social media app. So if I get on a social media app, just like if I'm at a party and I choose to go talk to people, I have to choose to connect with people. So you know this about me. One of my favorite things is to send people memes.
Yeah.
But that's a way that I'm connecting and that I'm utilizing the app. Or I've got friends from high school that I haven't seen since high school, or even college, my college days, and they've got these cute kids, and just being able to comment on that and notice the details going on in their life and exchanging that back and forth, as I'm connecting and not just mindlessly scrolling.
Yeah. And connecting is yet again another bid for connection. Like when you
Yeah.
send me memes, I'm literally shaking. I'm laughing so hard. I'm like, this is so on point.
The hidden talent.
It is. It totally is. It's a beautiful thing. And that's part of sharing our hearts with each other. Is like, it doesn't have to be like all the nitty gritty, deep, dark secrets. It really can be lighthearted and fun. So how are we supposed to share our hearts with people in a virtual world? What does that look like?
I think it looks like a lot of creativity. So I think we can all own that. And I think it's finding those things that we do day to day and finding ways to share them. So I had a friend who was telling me about how she loves cooking, and she organized a cooking night with with a bunch of other friends, and they all just had the same ingredients, and it was like a fun little cooking show. Or I had another friend that did a fun paint night where they all were just there virtually and like following all the same steps.
Fun.
So fun, but granted virtual, and I get it, but there's still that bid for connection that's happening and taking place in those moments and those interactions.
That's so huge. And it's putting forth that effort. And so thank you so much for sharing those things with us. I really appreciate it. So to wrap up, we have a few takeaways for you.
Actually, Carolyn, I have a question. It's a very, yeah, it's a very deep one. So are you guys ready?
Ready.
Ready.
It's
So
in
ready.
regards to people are not business transactions. How does that align with it's not personal, it's business reasoning when people use that to make hard decisions? Like, let's say they have to like let someone go and they use that excuse. It's not personal, it's business. And yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
That is, honestly, that's a really tough question because there's two elements, right? Like, you really do have to figure out the structure of your business, and you have to understand how it's going to work. And then there's the people side that drive your business. If you don't have people, you don't have a business. And so it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It doesn't really matter. What it comes down to, I think, like when we're in these types of really dynamic experiences, is how we treat those people. Like, it's not personal, it's business. Well, it's personal to me because this is my livelihood. And recognizing that and acknowledging that is going to be critical in helping people exit, if you will, their experience. Because, and to be fair, we're all human and we're all in a really unknown situation and circumstances. And so are there going to be times where people fall flat on their face in the process? Yeah. And it's going to hurt, and it's going to be honestly terrible and horrendous at best. So understanding that we need to lean in with the eye of generosity and compassion is going to go a long way in recognizing that I cannot control how other people are responding to this, but I can control me and what are my values and what do I do? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, what I would add is that I think there's something to be said for transparency as well. I think if we're doing those steps to build connection and responding to those bids, if that type of conversation does have to happen because there's that level of trust there, they're not going to feel as much like a business transaction. Because I think we all get that things happen, but in my experience with working with clients or even having different friends lose jobs or whatnot, it always went better the more transparent their supervisor was about things. And I get that there's always reasons for why we're less transparent or more transparent, but I think just that honest communication.
Right. Honest communication. Thank you so much for asking that question. Joanna, do we have another one?
Yeah. So this goes back to the first topic. And the question is, how do I teach my family members to be more mindful, more on a personal level?
Love it. Chelsea B, take it away, sister.
Yeah, no, I love that that's actually being asked because I think it starts with us too. So I'll give this example. I had a supervisor back when I was training to be a therapist, and she loves birds. And we had this big giant window that overlooked the valley, and she'd often, when I'd go into her office, I'd be ready to go, like, I need this help, and she'd say, let's come look at the window and just look at the birds, see how many birds we can find. And then she'd start to say, what colors do you see on the birds? Oh gosh, did you hear that noise that one just made? And she was essentially teaching me to be mindful, and it's been helpful. Now I will even still look at my window. There's a little hummingbird that lives by my office, and I love it. So I think just inviting people into what you're already doing is going to teach them how to be mindful.
And calling things out. I love that. Like, what did you hear? What did you see?
Yeah. 5 senses is just one of the easiest ways to start with it.
That's beautiful. Implementing the 5 senses. That's awesome. Thank you so much for participating, everyone. We really appreciate that. We're going to jump to our takeaways. And there are several things that we want you to remember on owning your health. Chelsea B.
Yes. I'd love for you guys to remember to name it to tame it. When we do that, when we name our emotions, we can tame our emotions. And then to start utilizing mindfulness practices by being present and utilizing those 5 senses. And then radical acceptance. It is a beautiful tool, and to just do the next right thing and accept the steps that need to go on in the painful situations that we're in. Beautiful.
And then relationships start with us. I've heard the phrase that it takes 2 to tango, but they forgot to say it only takes 1 to ruin it. I could be doing an awesome tango, and yet my partner is doing the foxtrot. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening right now? Like, we are not on the same tempo. Like, we've got to figure this out. And to remember, we need to treat people how they want to be treated. We're going to upgrade the golden rule and make sure that it's about them. Make sure that we're treating people and validating people in the way that they want to be treated. And so before we jump into our live Q&A, we have one more question for you. What topics do you want to learn more about in the future webinars? We are so eager to make sure that we are serving you and helping you in any capacity that we can. And so we have a few options. Diversity inclusion in the workplace, how to manage different generational employees, Gen Xers, Boomers, Millennials, Gen Zers, interpersonal communication, so email and in person, cultural awareness, or if there's another topic. We would love to learn more about what you're interested in. If there's a different topic that you want us to cover, go ahead and pop that in the chat. We'll make note of that. We want to make sure that we're serving you and helping you in any capacity that we can. And so we'll give you about 10 more seconds for that. And so I'm just super fascinated to know what people want to know, because I'm interested in all of these topics, but it's like, what about everybody else, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll wrap it up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, these are so exciting. Okay, perfect. We've got those noted. Thank you so much for participating in our poll, and we'll go ahead and we'll jump over to our live Q&A for the next few minutes.
Yeah, so let's see. We have a question about how do you help your team in the workplace name it to tame it?
Oh, that's a good one.
It is a great one. It's a great one. I would say one of the best ways that we can help our people in the workplace name it to tame it is by shifting our culture, that it's okay to name an emotion and it's okay to say what's going on for us. And then also, just as coworkers or supervisors, being able to be in tune with what's going on. So maybe if you're my coworker and I know you've got a big project coming up, just saying, how are you feeling about that? Or how's it going? You know, and just inviting them in to be able to talk about what's going on.
Well, that's so non-threatening. How are you feeling? Because I could say, you know, I'm a little unsettled by that.
Mm-hmm.
And I could leave it at that, or I could unpack that for you, be like, oh, it's getting wild up in here. It's getting wild.
And then I would also say, when they give you those responses, just being curious. You're not going into that interaction needing to change what's going on for them, or being able to give them all the solutions to what if they are stressed or whatnot. Just be curious and say, tell me more about what you're saying. Or if I think you said that, what was your response when I gave that to you? Was it that
Unsettled?
Just asking, what does unsettled mean, or what's going on that you feel unsettled? Just being curious.
Yeah. Curiosity really is a bid for connection, and helping people really understand that. Awesome.
Thank you for that. We'll go with one more question since we're almost out of time here. What happens when your team hasn't put any marbles in your jar?
Oh, the marbles.
It's important. I think that's great that they're asking that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I would first start, again, we only have control over us, so I'd first start in looking at how you're putting marbles in others' jars, and if you're taking people's bids for connection, or if you're shutting down their bids for connection. And then after you've kind of done that self-awareness piece, I would maybe go to your supervisor and just express to them that you want to be able to build more connection with them, and maybe see if they've got some feedback for you of what you could be doing differently too.
Yeah, it really does start with us. Like, am I reaching out in the way that they understand?
Yes.
That I genuinely do want to connect with them, and I want to put marbles in their jar. I want it to be overflowing, you know? Oh, Chelsea, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
It's been a delight. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We want to thank our sponsors, Go One and Osmore. Chelsea's a thank you. We're going to give you a Go One bear.
Oh, gosh, this is adorable.
Oh, they will. Everyone, thank you again for being here with us, and we look forward to hanging out with you next month.